for coming. So yeah, for those who haven't met me yet, I'm Aidan Aisley, Facility and Investment Lead at Kent FA. So here tonight, obviously, to deliver the Preparing for the Closed Season webinar, which is part 3 of our grass pitch improvement series. So really lucky to have Daniel Bradley from the Grounds Management Association joining us this evening. We'll be able to obviously provide a lot of expert advice and guidance in terms of how best to prepare for end of season works. So yeah, just a bit of housekeeping to begin with. So if you can keep your mics on mute just while you're not speaking, and cameras off as well. But obviously, if you are wanting to come in and say something, feel free to have your cameras on and your mics on as well. And yeah, hopefully would like to make this as engaging as possible. So if you've got any kind of questions that you'd like to ask, yeah, make sure you do. If you want to post them in the chat, feel free to, or if you want to come on mic and ask as well, then that'd be great. And as we always say, no question's a silly question. So yeah, look forward to hopefully having some good ones from you this evening. So just to go through what we're going to cover today, so I'll just do a quick update on the pitch improvement programme, give you a little bit of insight into a few new projects that we've got coming up, and also some things that will obviously help you with improving your pitches. Then I'll hand over to Daniel, who'll go through the kind of core section of tonight around preparing for the closed season. Then we've got obviously some time if you've got any questions, and then just a quick reminder around the Hive groundskeepers community, a little nudge on the Grassroots Football Awards, and then what we've got coming up in terms of the final part of the 4-part series. So just to update on the pitch improvement programme. So far this season, we've had 147 pitches that have gone through the pitch power process for the first time, and that's across 45 sites. So we've done really well in that regard. And that brings the total number of pitches that have been assessed since the project started to 512, which, when you think about it, is a phenomenal number. And if we manage to improve all of those pitches, we've done extremely well. And that's across 141 sites. So far this season, the sites that have accessed the grass pitch maintenance funding, there's 14 of them, bringing the total to 47 since the project started. And that's 51 pitches this season and 214 pitches since the project started. So you can see, obviously, the number of pitches we've had assessed is 512, and the number that we've got grass pitch maintenance funding going into is 214. So we've got quite a big number of pitches that have started the process but not claimed the funding and started investing in the pitches yet. So that's going to be the key kind of driver moving forwards. There's 298 pitches to target there, really. So the number of good pitches, obviously, for those that haven't done pitch power before, when the pitch power assessment takes place, you'll then get a rating for each pitch, a performance quality standard, which will be either poor, basic, good, or advanced. So we're aiming for as many good pitches as we can, or specifically 293 good pitches. And at the end of December, we had 236. So a bit of a deficit between there and the target. We should have an updated target at the end of updated current position at the end of this month. But yeah, hoping to be able to hit that 293 by the end of June. And you'll also see there the amount of funding that the grass pitch maintenance investment has had. So just over £400,000 in this season. And since the project started, we've now had £1.1 million of investment awarded towards the pitches. So yeah, if you haven't done it yet, then please do it, because yeah, it's there to improve your pitches as far as possible in terms of the reports with the advice, and then the funding to carry out the work. So for those that are already on the programme, or even those that haven't yet, the pitch power assessment mandatory window comes to an end at the end of this month. So this is the month in which you need to get an assessment in. So between the 1st of November and the 31st of March, if you haven't yet done an assessment on your pitches during that period of time, then you've got a couple of weeks left to get it in before the end of the month. And then for those that have didn't do one in the window at the start of this season, you're going to need to do another one before the end of June as well, so that you've got your 2 in for this season. So if you either haven't done pitch power before and would like to kind of get a bit of information about it, you can pop me over an email and I'll send you our grass pitch improvement guide. You can also view our webinar, which we held back in September, which was which was part 1 of this series, which focused on the relaunch of the Pitch Power app. And that will give you a lot of information in terms of how to undertake the actual assessments. And then just finally, the grass pitch maintenance funding is available. So please do take advantage of it. Even if your pitches are in good condition, there's still funding for you to get as well. So it's well worth going through the process and getting that extra bit of investment into improving your pitches. Okay, and just some upcoming projects that will probably not apply to all of you, but would certainly be something worth looking at for some of you. So the grass pitch maintenance funding has previously only been open to clubs and leagues, town and parish councils, and charities to apply for. It's now been widened so that town and parish councils can apply directly, and educational sites can also apply directly. This is on the understanding that they've got community football taking place on those pitches, and they'll need to work up a application alongside a community club. So they'll need a service level agreement in place, and we can provide the templates for that. But basically, if you've previously looked at grass pitch maintenance funding and maybe had a bit of trouble getting a lease or a license out of your town or parish council or educational site, this might be a way of doing the application without needing to have one in place. We've also been told that robotic mowers are going to be added to the maintenance machinery that you can apply for from the Football Foundation. That's only going to be for selected sites from April onwards, and those sites will be recommended via the pitch power report. So if it's not in your pitch power report, if you apply, you're unlikely to get the funding. So you'll need to have it referenced in your pitch power report first. So robotic mowers can be great for certain sites, and Daniel might be able to jump in here in terms of some of the insight behind that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely what you've said there. It's got to be part of the recommendation on the pitch power report. There's also going to be an expression of interest developed ahead of that. So it is, we need to be aware that that's something that you're considering, and then look at the whole package holistically in terms of what maintenance you're doing at the moment. How would it benefit you? Essentially to make not a case study, but the case has got to be put forward of how it's going to be beneficial, and that's going to be initially done through an expression of interest. And there is quite specific criteria. It's not to put anybody off, but because the foundation are now looking to fund them, but just that they're not going to be kind of, you know, passed out to every club. There's very specific situations and scenarios where they're beneficial to clubs. However, if you are interested, Aidan's your first point of call, and then we can kind of look to pass some information to you.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Daniel. And then, yeah, the final one of these is Home Advantage, which is the name of a new project which will be looking at the asset transfer of some local authority sites to clubs. So the package will be up to £250,000 of support from the Football Foundation, and that's 100% of funding. And that package can be built based around pitch maintenance funding for 6 years, groundskeeper qualifications, machinery, security fencing, storage and goals, income generating bits and pieces such as catering facilities, and then legal fees and insurances. So again, this is in its very early stages. So at the moment, the Football Foundation is planning to have a pilot of 5 different sites across the country. We're really hoping that we can get one in Kent, but there's obviously no guarantee that we'll be part of that pilot. After that pilot has taken place, the aim is to upscale this a bit as well. And yeah, hopefully we'll be able to identify some sites in Kent that would be beneficial both for the club and for the local authority as well. So something to keep an eye on, and obviously it's not going to be relevant for everyone, but yeah, just something to be aware of. Okay, so just going to hand over now to Daniel for the main part of tonight's session.
Thanks, Aidan. Thanks for the introduction, and thanks everybody for jumping on this evening. Just going to load this presentation up now. Hopefully this has come through. Yep. I'm unable to see the chat from now, so Aidan, if there's any questions, feel free to interrupt me and ask away. And those that are on the call, feel free to use the chat box. We don't have to wait till the question and answer session. You know, if you've got a point to raise, those that are on the call that have submitted questions before, and I know there's a couple on them, we've picked them up already, so we'll touch on those in the question and answer session. But it's just as we're running through the slides, if there's anything burning that you want to raise your hand in, feel free to unmute yourself, feel free to pop it in the chat. You know, it's quite a relaxed and not a pressing kind of evening this evening, and quite relaxed about everything. But Aidan, yeah, thank you for the introduction. And yeah, I mean, we're approaching a really exciting time, which is the end of, I don't want to keep referring to it as the end of season work, but it's kind of in the spring maintenance work and renovation operations that can be carried out in the spring. So moving on, the presentation, there's a lot of information on there. I'm not going to sit here this evening and read everything off to you. We're just going to cover the main points, allow an opportunity for you to ask any questions, you know, based on the slides. All of this, we'll get the presentation out with you. That's got all the links in, and any other information that we touch on this evening, we'll follow up with and get that out to you in a follow-up email. I'll get it over to Aidan. But yeah, just so you're aware, I don't want you to be daunted when you see the slides, because there's a lot of information on some of them, but we're just going to kind of touch on the key points because we've got an hour this evening. So the basics of end of season renovations or spring works. So preparing for renovations, we'll touch on decompaction, restoring grass cover, cleaning out your surface and grass hygiene, restoring surface levels and weed control. So first of all, we're touching on preparing for your renovations. So absolutely brilliant that you guys are on the call this evening, because we're looking to give you some information to allow you to plan as early as possible. The weather really hasn't been kind to us over, you know, well, this year so far. I think, you know, it's been very wet, had a cold snap where usually, you know, you might be able to carry out some repairs and they would be taking. But yeah, don't feel like you're on your own in suffering through this. The best thing that you can do at the moment is not try and fight not try and beat yourself up about the quality of your pitch or if your pitch has suffered over the winter, but just to look towards the future and get some plans down and plan what you can be doing in the spring. Have you got an up-to-date pitch power report? Based on the conditions of your pitch at the time, we'll provide guidance and advice on what you should be looking to do with it in the spring. Out of those works, obviously, you've got to prioritize what's important to you. We offer that information in the reports as well, what's going to be almost the best bang for your buck in terms of what you can do within the spring to improve your pitch, and what's going to be more of a luxury and might have to wait. And it allows you to, as you would have been doing, it allows you to create a plan of what you want to do and when and what's important. It is a busy time. Aidan has got information on who you can get in touch with. County FA have got a grounds maintenance partner who will be offering services. So it is a busy time for contractors and suppliers. So the earlier that you can plan, the better. Really have a clear idea of how long your pitches may need to be out of use, or precautions that you need to take in terms of enhancing the works that you have had done, or to kind of protect that investment, and then who is responsible for the establishment and the maintenance required to ensure the investment is successful. You know, it's such a busy time of year in the spring, and as soon as this weather changes, lots of clubs and organisations will be looking to carry out these similar works. So do try and get in early, make those plans, make those contact with your contractors, order the materials that you need, and as early as possible. I mean, last summer was the perfect example, and we're all aware of climate change now and how the summers are getting drier and warmer. And I know so many clubs last year that were burnt, literally when, had the opportunity to seed when the playing season was complete, and then it didn't rain for 2 or 3 months, and that seed just became really expensive, or a lot of it became expensive bird food. So now's the opportunity to kind of like think about what you want to do, think about the opportunity, when to carry those works out, and if you need further support in terms of what does getting in contact with myself, getting in contact with Aidan to have a second opinion, that service is is for you, to be able to pick up the phone and have a chat with us, or indeed ask the questions this evening. Do try and, if you're engaging with contractors, do try and give yourself a little bit of wiggle room. I know it's really difficult because you're going to be wanting to pin to dates, but if it's raining and you're looking to have scarification carried out, it's probably not the best conditions, and so do try and allow yourself a little bit of wiggle room, and assess the resources that you've got, and what needs to happen. So moving on to the next one. Again, Aidan's going to touch on this later, but this is all information that's on the Hive groundskeeping community. We'll send this presentation out to you, but the hyperlink's there. I'm not going to touch on it too much this evening because we're quite limited for time. But how to identify a competent contractor. Obviously, we've got Born to Garden, a partner in Kent. And I'm sure actually if you phoned up Colin and wanted to chat to him about what he thought about your ground, or similarly me, do get in touch with people. You don't have to be in the dark trying to plan this on your own if it's daunting to you. Support is available out there, and this is why we've got these partnerships, and this is why we've got the connections that we've got to support you in improving your ground. Again, there's another card here, preparing for renovations. This is also on the Hive, the hyperlinks there. So yeah, do familiarize yourself and understand, you know, some of these questions that are going to be posed within both of these guides, and familiarize yourself with the information that's available. And again, there's the link to the Hive is at the bottom, which will go out, but I know Aidan's going to touch on it later. Along with the information that's on the Hive, we've got the Grounds Management Association's toolkit, and it doesn't solely cover football. So if you are looking at, you know, you've got to transition into a summer sport at your ground, it's another useful tool to have in your toolbox, essentially, and check out the information on there. Similar to the Hive, you've got operations that are broken down seasonally, and then it does touch on the transitions into summer sports as well. And again, you know, if you are making the transition to cricket or any other summer sport, you know, you might have tennis, perhaps. Those are covered on there, or tennis isn't, but cricket, rugby league, and rugby union information's within the toolkit. Again, the link's down the bottom, and that's what the landing page looks like when you get on there. So that's that. Any questions in the chat at the moment, Aidan? Because we'll move on to some of the maintenance practices.
Yeah, nothing at the moment. So yeah, all good.
No problem. Okay. Decompaction is one of the most important things that you can do to your pitches in the spring. Again, it's when conditions are right. It's you know, given where we are in the country, there's a high proportion of clay within the soils. So a word of warning that when we refer to spring decompaction operations, or, you know, end of season works that involve decompaction, we are talking about solid tine decompaction. So that's your solid tine Wiedemanns, or your most commonly referred to the vertidrain. Slitting now, or performing linear decompaction, you run the risk of the ground, the soil profile not marrying back together correctly. So you do run the risk of opening up slits and cracks through the summer. So yeah, just to make that really clear, and a word of warning to kind of, when we're talking about spring decompaction works, we're talking about solid tine decompaction. It's absolutely essential. I mean, it's probably one of the best, like, I don't know what you'd call that, an infographic maybe, but essentially the pictures on the left hand side, that's the tine entering, applying heave, which is where it pulls back, and then as I mentioned, the ground conditions have got to be right for carrying out this operation, so you get those cracks and fissures within the soil profile. The benefits, you know, it's just one of the best things that you could do to your pitches. It increases your natural drainage potential through opening up air pores within the soil to allow the water to drain through. It releases gases that are trapped within the soil, and it allows you to have a deeper and greater root structure. Yeah, so penetration of water, air, and fertilizer into the soil improves rooting capacity, improves turf health through the exchange of gas and drainage. It's something to consider if you're top dressing at the end of the season, if you are applying sand to improve the soil texture, then decompaction and aeration is going to be critical, so you ameliorate that within the existing soil profile, because otherwise you just create a pan on the top, and and you don't really gain the benefits of applying that, because you might apply a very small layer of sand to improve the the surface, but actually you're not improving the soil's texture at all. It's just remaining on the surface. So traditionally you would apply top dressing and then spike behind and then brush in to improve soil texture and accelerate kind of the drainage of the pitch. Decompaction as well, it improves the breakdown of organic matter. So if you have got a thatch layer, scarification and grooming alone isn't the best to get into it. You do need kind of to have an active soil, and decompaction is really beneficial for that. It's preferable to aim to go as deep as possible with maximum heave, but the caveat to that is you can trash your pitch, you'll cause damage to your pitches through using this machine. So if you're aware of any, if you're engaging with a contractor to come in and do these works, just be aware of if there's old sockets in the ground somewhere, or if there's like an area that's got rocks, or if you're unsure completely, just get him to test, or him or her to test the machine on the outer edges of the pitch. Don't just go first run straight through the goal mouth. If you're not sure, just test it first to make sure that you're not plucking the pitch or causing any damage. I think that's probably it on decompaction. And decompaction really can be done anytime from now. Obviously it's quite cold and quite wet at the moment, but certainly when we get into April, it's an ideal time to perform decompaction.
Daniel, just on that, we've had a couple of clubs where they've got too much sand that they've kind of ended up putting onto the top of their pitches. Is there any kind of advice around how to deal with that? Is that going to be just obviously trying to decompact it to allow the sand to go through, or?
Yeah, I mean, so there's a couple of scenarios here. If too much sand dressing has been applied, then you need to ameliorate it and integrate it within the existing soil profile. And the best way to do that is obviously you've got to make some holes in the ground and get the brushes to brush it into the profile. If you're talking about clubs that have dressed isolated areas, as repairs, such as so if you, for example, if you've got a hollowed goal mouth now, you're not going to get any great benefit from chucking a ton of sand in it, because it's going to get kicked out. You've got no grass there. So if you're making isolated repairs, it's better to use a sand soil mix.
Yeah.
Okay. And you need to key that in, and put, if you've got no coverage, you almost, it's really difficult to do it now without kind of turfing that area. So if you say you've got a hollow goal mouth now, if you go and apply loads of sand, you've got no grass growth there anyway, it's just going to get kicked out.
Yeah.
Okay. So everything that's kind of like advised is to prevent total loss of cover. So the little and often approach, if you start to see your goal mouth suffering through the season, a couple of handfuls of seed here and there, a few holes, a bit of dressing to restore the levels, so you don't get that sunken level because you're not going to grow grass there, because it's compacted and water's just going to sit there. So if you're applying top dress into your pitch, which I appreciate now is quite a luxury given the cost of it and the haulage costs and everything alike, you would apply a silica sand, ensuring that it comes from a reputable supplier and it's screened to a correct level. So please don't just buy the cheapest sand that you can find. Speak to somebody if you're making that investment into top dressing your pitch. Ensure you're applying the something that's suitable. And in most cases, these places will offer soil your profile testing, so they can break down and they can find the most suitable sand to apply. There's calculators on their website to find out kind of, in terms of the size of your pitches, how much do you want to cover? If if you talk about 40 to or 60 ton, they'll break down kind of like, how far that's going to go, and you'd be surprised at how quickly you would lose 40, 60, 80 tons in a pitch. But it is beneficial. The other point, if a pitch is too sandy, it might be a constructive pitch that has lost cover and has become kind of, with sparse grass cover. That's something different, and there's different ways of improving that. But I wonder if the club that you're referring to is on a constructed pitch that is lost.
I think it might be because they did have some major works done in it a couple of years ago, and they said it's been a couple of years that it's had too much sand across the whole thing, really. So maybe I can put them in touch with you to give them a bit of something
please do.
bespoke.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. If you it's like all professional club, all the stadiums, everything, they play on their pitches are 100% sand, but they're reinforced pitches, either with a carpet hybrid system or with a stitched hybrid system to add stability. So the sand constructed pitches take a lot more maintenance than traditional kind of indigenous grown medium pitches, because their drainage rates are so high, so they will just drain through. And after the summer that we had, and if you don't have irrigation, I know a lot of pitches really struggled, because once you lose grass coverage, it doesn't naturally regenerate. So everything is geared towards, if you can sustain grass cover, that's like if you can get your pitch to, I mean, it's like the simplest things. It's like, we want the pitch to drain sufficiently, and we want to sustain grass cover, and kind of like, once you find the balance with that, everything else kind of works. If you know what I mean. It's like not trying to break it down crazy. And you can see there, I mean, it's a little bit of a cheat, because they're two very different soil types that you've got there. But you can see on the left side, there's a well-structured soil with a decent soil texture, and on the right hand side is a poorly structured soil with a less desirable soil texture. So you can imagine what's going to drain better, in terms of quality of surface.
Brilliant, thanks for that.
We'll move on to the next point, if there's no questions, but feel free to kind of ask away as we go. So overseeding is absolutely critical, really. I used to see it a lot, especially with cricket, in terms of a lot of cricket outfields are made up with weed grasses in the summer, like your annual meadowgrass, your poa. It's a summer weed, so you don't really get that benefit in the summer. The only caveat to that is when you do get ingress of poa during the summer and you lose ryegrass, it drops off very quickly in the autumn and winter, because it doesn't have the desirable characteristics of ryegrass. So it can't be understated how important it is, if you have the means to invest, and it is an investment, into overseeding your pitch with desirable good quality ryegrass. So the desired species for winter sports is perennial ryegrass. Good seed mixes will typically contain at least 3 cultivars. So yeah, as it's really worth. I'm not saying buy the best quality seed, but buying a specific sports winter sports mix of perennial ryegrass is probably one of the best investments, similar to decompaction, that you can make into your pitch. As well as that, it's really important to consider your application of the seed. So do get a contractor to apply it if you don't have the means to yourself. I'm talking about having it dimple seeded or disc seeded at a suitable rate. And it's best practice to do it in multiple directions. So if you were applying 35 grams per square meter, which is an ideal overseeding rate, depending on how much cover you've retained through the winter, that would be split between 2 or 3 directions, ideally 3 directions. If you're engaging with a contractor to have your pitches overseeded, they would most likely supply the seed as well, but just make sure you're aware of what they're applying and the rate that it's going down at. Also, it's really good practice to keep some seed for any repairs that don't take, or any any application that doesn't take so well. So if you've got higher wear in your goal mouths, you want to keep topping those up until you've got a sustained rate of coverage, performing repairs beforehand, ideally. And yeah, just ensure if you're keeping seed, it's kept off the ground, ideally in a cool place, out of sunlight. And ensure if you open the bag, it's wrapped up well. One thing that's really important to stress is if you are having your pitch overseeded, then do make repairs to high wear areas if you can, ahead of time, and that can be through making repairs to your goal mouths. So I can provide some information actually in an email following this, just so that people are kind of familiar with that process. One of the best things that you can do is to try and get ahead now of the curve in terms of, if you can get some seed in the ground, kind of in the, start making these repairs before April or into early April, just in the high wear areas. Again, just a little and often approach is going to put you in a better place when you have your pitch overseeded. And you can have the pitch overseeded before the end of the season. Again, because we had that really hot summer, it's something to be aware of, that if you don't have the means to irrigate, you're going to struggle to grow grass. So it is a consideration, but you will get a better rate of germination and establishment the more grass that you've got on your pitch at the moment. So again, retention of grass cover is absolutely fundamental. And with a lot of clubs as well, you can, instead of doing it as a one hit at the end of, traditionally you'd have the playing season's finished, let's hit the pitch hard with a renovation. It's just, with the cost of everything now and with the weather, it's a risk. So a preferred approach in my eyes perhaps would be to seed before the end of the playing season, and if you can stretch to it, have your pitch overseeded again in the autumn, kind of into the playing season, just so you have got a good percentage of ground cover that you're taking through. through into the winter and through your playing season. There's a lot of information on these next two cards, and I'm really mindful of the time. So I think, to be honest, I'm just going to flick to the establishment and then send the information over. And if anybody wants to pick up after or ask a question, we can do. So again, we're thinking about seed. It is an investment, and don't kind of go crazy with like hand distribution of the seed. If you are going to do that, just try and get it into the ground. The most important thing is seed soil contact. So yeah, the seed needs 4 things to germinate and establish: temperature, oxygen, water, and light. And then, so if one of those key things are removed, you will struggle. With limited irrigation, seeding between mid-May and August is considered risky if conditions don't fall in your favour, and we saw that last year. So perennial ryegrass, once it's in the ground, it will take typically 7 to 14 days to germinate, and then that obviously depends on the seed soil contact and the weather conditions at the time. If you have got a means of irrigation, you can focus on these isolated areas and try and get ahead in terms of making repairs to your goal mouths and try and get those to establish. And again, use things like germination sheets or scaffolding netting is absolutely fine. And there's some guidance there around the initial first cut using a rotary mower. I think I'll leave it there in terms of that, and we'll move on to the next slide, Aidan, if there's no messages that have nothing in the chat.
Yep, nothing in the chat. All good.
Okay, so spring also gives an opportunity to kind of clear out the grass sward and remove or start getting into the thatch layer and the organic matter layer. So you can see indicated on that image there, that's a layer of thatch that we've got at around probably you're looking at 15-20 mil there, and you can see actually when this was taken it was raining, and there's no water that's come into the soil profile. It's all retained through that top thatch layer, so it's important to kind of focus on removing that. You're not going to do it at once, but as we touched on with talking about aeration and decompaction and dressing, you can kind of start beginning to break it down and make it a more desirable profile. The thing to consider here is that only start doing grooming operations with the rake and with the brush once the grass has started growing strongly again, so you know it's got the chance to recover, because otherwise you're going to hit it hard, and it's not going to have the resource to pick itself back up and actually achieve what you're trying to promote here. So chain harrowing or raking can be done in multiple directions if a less form of scarification is desirable. That's probably the best approach if you are looking to get into a thatch layer and doing it in multiple directions. But again, prevention is better than cure. So if you do practice good hygiene on your pitch throughout the playing season, you aren't going to have the development of that thatch layer. It's just a little and often approach is the best way forward. I think again with this one, the information's all there, so I might just move on to the next one. If you are, I mean, using a kind of a really aggressive scarifier to remove a lot of the ground cover, you do need to really consider your irrigation then, because it's going to be fundamental to bringing on juvenile grass and establishing it, because you've got far less cover and there's less retained through the water, because there's through the soil profile, because it's more exposed. Again, it's something that we can pick up if that is a consideration on your site. But a key message here to take away is it is a little and often approach to turf hygiene and grooming. Click on to restoring surface levels. So again, top dressing is becoming quite an expensive luxury. It is absolutely beneficial if you do have the means and the resource to do this, and certainly for making isolated hand repairs. It's an ideal time to carry those out at the end of the playing season and throughout the season to apply a small amount of dressing to restore these levels. People, talk about a bobbly pitch sometimes, and usually you get that, and it's not masked through the poor quality of the surface. It's usually uneven coverage. So if you are suffering from that, then top dressing is a consideration, but introducing other best practice maintenance techniques will put you in good stead to remove those characteristics from your pitch.
Daniel, just on that, because we often get clubs who are wanting to get the roller out straight away.
Yeah.
Is there ever a time when rolling is going to be of benefit? Because obviously it does compact the pitch. But yeah, it seems to be the thing that a lot of clubs will turn to straight away when they feel like the surface is a bit uneven. They'll go, right, we need to get it rolled.
Yeah, I mean, you are. It's like a one step forward, two steps back scenario, to be absolutely honest with you, because in most of the, if you think about it, the pitch has been cut up usually because it's been played on in quite poor conditions. So there's a lot of water being retained within that profile. Yes, if you roll it, you are going to flatten the surface, but with that, you're going to push even more of those air pores out of the soil. So you are going to cause compaction. The best thing to do, if you almost picture kind of like the rationale behind doing it, and it's the hardest thing to do, is to just stay off it and take light footsteps rather than taking the tractor on it and kind of like hitting it hard, is to make repairs by hand if you have the time to do that. But yeah, for sure, if you've got a cut up pitch, rolling it is going to be detrimental.
Yeah. Perfect. Cheers for that.
Okay, we'll move on to weed control next. So if you have lost a lot of cover during the playing season, it might be that you have got an ingress of weeds that you want to treat with a selective herbicide. This can be done later than these operations that we've spoken about, and it's only at all beneficial to do this once you have established any seed that you've put into the ground. So 6 to 8 weeks following seeding would be the opportunity to apply a selective herbicide to control your weeds. You may see that it picks up quite a bit in the spring. Once it depends on the weeds that you've got, and each weed will be telling you something about the conditions of your pitch. So it's worth kind of trying to identify the weeds that you are getting and figure out what those are trying to tell you about what's going on with your pitch. It's not something that it would actually be legal for people to do in-house. You need to engage with an appropriately qualified contractor to carry out a selective herbicide application. And again, not to apply it in drought conditions, because what you're looking to do is control the weeds, but also the grass should be growing well enough to kind of thicken out those areas and replace where the weeds are. So that's a consideration as well. There are cultural practices that you can do to minimize the ingress of weeds that you get into your pitch. Grooming and brushing is one of those. But yeah, it's something that you might want to consider as part of your end of season or spring works. So flicking on to the kind of summary, I appreciate there's been a lot of information to try and take through, and yeah, it's dragged on a little bit this evening, so apologies for that. So best practice: keep seed and dressing in a dry environment, store open bags sealed and off the ground, and ensure you have enough to make repairs through the playing season. Again, work with the weather and not against it. Watch the long-term weather forecast, monitor growth rate and turf health through the colour and cut rate, how much you're taking off, and you know what colour the turf is. You know, is it time to get your spring summer controlled release fertilizer down? Once that tapers, do you need to put a more conventional application down or a liquid? Again, to stress, now's the time to try and make a head start to carrying out these isolated repairs to worn or bare areas. Don't neglect machinery, booking servicing in good time so that you're ready to go when you need to get back on your pitches and begin cutting and maintenance. What you do following your renovation is often more important than what you do during. So protecting that investment that you've made into your pitch, making good decisions and following best practice guidance, and then to carry out your next pitch power report. And then, you know, it's one of those cliche sayings that I always refer to, but it's knowing when not to do something is often more important than knowing when to do something. So that's the end of the slideshow. Are there any questions that have come through, Aidan? Or I've got the.
We haven't got any in the chat as yet, but yeah, Malcolm or Ian, is there anything that you guys kind of had in terms of questions?
Let me flick back to the start, and I can. I've received. I have the email that was sent through. So let me stop sharing, and I can kind of pick that up. So there's a few questions that came in ahead of it. So we'll just touch on those for the benefit of those that have asked. So when seeding your goalmouth, is it best to cover the area with a ground sheet for the sun to germinate in the day and take the ground sheet off for the night, or leave it on completely? So with this one, the ground sheet serves as not only to protect, not only to kind of allow the pitch to, it's not only beneficial when the sun's out, essentially. So when you are repairing the goalmouth, leave the ground sheet down until you have germination. The ground sheet will retain heat within the ground. It will conserve moisture within the ground, and it's beneficial, you know, for the germination process. So do check it underneath it. Don't leave it down for 2 weeks and then come back and think, okay, we're going to have a fantastic cover underneath. It's something to check every so often. And once you do see the germination and the grass is growing beneath, then that's the time to take it off if the weather conditions are you know, are fine. So I hope that answers that one. The next question is, as with the majority of playing pitches at the end of the playing season, the main playing goal areas and centre circle are the problem. The club is not experienced in getting these repairs down. Again, I'll pass some guidance over with the presentation in terms of being able to carry out isolated repairs by hand, but the key thing to think about is you want to restore surface levels. So if you have got sunken goal mouths, those levels need to be restored. Otherwise, they're just going to hold water. And then when you're seeding into it, you want to promote good seed soil contact. So with that, you want to disturb the surface area, so you kind of create a seed bed. And again, using the germination sheets are advantageous in terms of getting germination and promoting establishment. Again, if any of these people that have asked the questions want to follow up at the end or give a call, then that's absolutely fine. And then another one has come in. So being a multi-sports club, cricket, football and archery, at the end of the football season, renovations overlap quite considerably with the start of the cricket season. This makes managing the work that is essential to be carried out very difficult. Is there any advice as to how to manage the repair of the football pitches that are also involved with the areas of the cricket outfield? Again, yeah, I'm fully aware that these turnarounds are really tight. The one thing to say, if it is a separate cricket club that is coming in to maintain what becomes an outfield, is to get to establish a relationship with whoever's maintaining those surfaces, just to ensure the kind of delicacy of the works that you've just performed. So I'm saying, if you have had the pitches overseeded, don't try to avoid them coming in and cutting the outfield straight down to 20 mil, because it's not going to be beneficial to the establishment of the football pitch at the end of the day. And again, just trying to get ahead of the curve and carrying out these repairs as soon as possible, and just monitoring kind of how they progress to that transition and the handover period. But again, it's a challenging situation from having a ground that's used for sport pretty much 12 months of the year. There's another question that's come in. We're wanting to move to a senior pitch. The ground will benefit from some infilling with soil to level it off. Someone has estimated that it would take 60 to 80 tons of soil. I think it would be about 6 inches deep in the deepest areas. Any suggestions as to order, what quality of soil, etc.? It's an uneven ground, so should we try a turf cutter and try and relay it after? I think this is something that might need a visit. So if this person wants to request a visit through Aidan and get myself out, or a support pitch advisor, or a contractor to get, it's really difficult to judge on what's needed to bring a pitch back into play or restore surface levels, especially if you're talking kind of some areas are 6 inches deep. It would need it depends on how you want to do this and look at it. But as I mentioned, there are calculators out there that would help you identify quantities required in terms of dressing and material. But I think that's probably a more specialist question that would need to be taken offline in terms of a site visit or indeed some more specialist guidance offered with that one. That's it for the questions that were sent through over email. I'm not sure if any have come through the chat.
Yeah, we've got one from Malcolm, who said, I had good grass coverage, drill seeding, fertilizing and aerating at the start of the season, but lost a lot during the season. What's gone wrong to lose it, and will it recover with more overseeding?
The answer is yes, it will recover through overseeding. If you manage to establish good coverage at the back end of the playing season last year, then you're on the right track and you're doing the right thing. You know, it sounds like you did everything right in terms of overseeding in the autumn. You had an aeration or a decompaction operation done, and you gave it a controlled release feed. The one thing that you can't control is the weather, and sometimes we need to take a step back a bit and think about how, and it's a really difficult topic to approach, I know, but how much these pitches are being used and what is sustainable for them. And it's finding that balance in terms of maintenance inputs and usage levels. I mean, the Sport England guidance recommend for an adult football pitch. It's an adult grass football pitch with a decent maintenance plan and sufficient drainage between 6 and 8 hours a week, which knocks a lot of people back a lot of the time. And it's a case of carrying out those operations again to restore good grass cover, but trying to fine tune these operations, ensuring that they're done, you know, in the best, in ideal conditions or suitable conditions. But as well as that, kind of looking at what else is going on, you know, they don't have infinite hours that can be played, and you know that's the same all up and down the sport pyramid, you know, the football pyramid to the very top, to yourselves, and the struggles are the same. Everybody wants more usage from their pitches, but the one thing that you can't buy is time and recovery time for the pitches, and that's something that has to be considered. So it's it's a lot of things. It sounds like you've got a really good grasp of the maintenance that you're doing, and you know what you need to do to bring it back. But so you've got records of that. You know, the next would be to kind of keep records of potentially minimum, maximum temperatures and rainfall, to understand what the weather's doing. We did that last year, but we were affected worse this year. Well, what's changed, you know, in terms of your rainfall, and as well keep you know, records of usage. And there are ways around you know, trying to spread the wear, you know, offset it. If you do have portable goals, some clubs have the luxury of having portable goals, and you know, over Christmas they'll move the pitch 2 meters or a meter and a half one direction, so the goal mouth isn't in the same place. Appreciate that's a luxury. You know, the old photos of kind of clubs having 3 goalposts, so they'd shift their goal, you know, to another location. So it's really all a balancing act, and I absolutely sympathise with you guys out there in terms of putting everything into the pitches, and kind of, you know, it's devastating to see that loss of cover. But now we're at a really good time of the year where, yeah, so this is, yeah, the challenges that you face. The club insisted playing when I thought it was, when you thought it was unplayable, and it turned to mud. It had exactly, you know, it's again, you know, we're looking at these short-term solutions in terms of people want to get the games on, but they don't often realize that actually if you play this weekend, then potentially the next 2 or 3 weekends are wiped out. And then, you know, look at the financial, you know, what finance does that game bring into the club compared to the damage that it's going to do to the club's asset, essentially, which is not only yourselves as people that care about it, but their surfaces. So it's a real balance, and actually yeah. I don't know how you can kind of go about it other than limit the wears, or you know encourage a kind of closer communication with the club to try and make that call ahead of match day, in terms of you're aware of poor conditions or bad weather that's coming in, and look, flag it early in the week and just say, look, this is heading up. We remember what happened before. We've got to make a significant investment into the pitch to restore the levels that we had, and it's bad because it sounds like your pitch was in a good place at the beginning of the season, but that kind of and you see it, and if it happens early season, you have a couple of bad weekends, that knocks you back for the rest of the season, and then you're forever trying to chase it with the temperatures decreasing, and it's challenging.
There's probably a figure we can put to that as well in terms of the added cost of repairing because of that situation. So, I mean, maybe that's something interesting that we could develop and share with clubs to say, actually, when you're kind of wanting to force that fixture in, just think about what's that added cost in terms of time and the financials going to be,
Yeah.
by not maybe postponing it for a week.
Yeah, completely. And sharing best practice between ourselves almost. And I know you're going to touch on it, and we've already brought it up, but the Hive groundskeeping community is the perfect forum for you. You're not out of touch with people. There are, you can always, you're connected now, essentially. If you've got a question, how are clubs doing this, and we've got a difficult character within the club, and we're playing the game, but this happened, and yeah, just record keeping and documenting stuff is really important. So yeah, um yeah, I feel for you when it's like you hear a situation like that it kind of like set you back early season, and it's been difficult since.
Marvelous. Thanks very much for that. So, yeah, unless there's any other questions, we'll just go through the final bits before we wrap up for the evening. Whoops, too far. So yeah, Hive Groundskeepers community. As Daniel's really neatly kind of transitioned us into, actually. If you're not already on it, then please make sure you get onto it. It's a great community with advice from the Grounds Management Association, Football Foundation staff are on there, County FA staff are on there, and you've obviously got other volunteers like yourself that are all on there and able to share different techniques that you've used, and hints and tips that you've kind of discovered that can really help you with developing your pitches. So there is a Kent community that you can join, which is when you log into the portal, you'll see at the top there's a groups button. You click that, and then you can type in the Kent FA Grass Pitch Improvement Hub, and then you'll be connected with others across Kent. But even beyond that, you can still post in the kind of main section, and you'll see responses from people that are all across the country. So yeah, it's a really good thing. And even if you're not posting anything on there yourself, you can see other people's comments, and you can pick up tips and hints from there as well. So really worth getting on there and having a look. This is just a quick video on the Grassroots Football Awards. So it's open for nominations at the moment, and they close, I think it's in the middle of April. And yeah, we'd really like to see as many applications, nominations as possible for grounds teams, because we're certainly aware from a county FA point of view, but I think that yourselves will be as well, that you are the forgotten people. People don't see the work that you do during the week. And when we talk about volunteers in football, it's often the ground staff that are the people that get forgotten. So we really want to make sure that you guys are celebrated. So I'll just play this video quickly. Hopefully it'll come through. Is the sound coming through? No sound.
No, no sound.
I know why that is. 1 second. Share again. And there we go.
They're the true beating heart. Not in it for themselves, trophies, medals, or awards. They do it for others, so we can't help but applaud. Helping nurture kids' skills dedicated through care. Bringing smiles to all faces, she's a breath of fresh air. Compassion for his players goes beyond on the grass. Adapting through knowledge ensures well-being lasts. Family, work, volunteering, she juggles it all through dedication and nurtures young referees. What a huge inspiration. A rising star helps the disadvantaged to flourish. Even saving a life, he's the role model to encourage. Its teams bear the fruit of this club's success and wealth, coaching badges, sponsors, welfare and mental health. A project built with passion to give Parkinson's the boot. Exercise is changing lives. That's why it's such a big group. The young match official rising up through the ranks. Committed to equality, we want to say a huge thanks. A grounds team on a mission, an old field, mud and dirt, transformed beyond recognition through relentless hard work. Respect is their mantra. They've raised funds for cancer. 90 teams, 7 leagues, the committee is the answer. Workshops, projects and youth coaching, he literally does it all. Giving hope and changing lives, he's the spirit of football. His positivity grows confidence in the children playing the game, raising awareness, cash for charity and support out to Ukraine. Hard work off and on the pitch, fresh ideas, muddy boots. We should water with support. That is how the grassroots.
There we are. So, yeah, it's open for nominations at the moment, and when you nominate, you'll be through to the nominations go through to the Kent FA team, and then the winners of the Kent FA awards go through to the national awards as well. So, yeah, it's well worth putting a nomination in. Oops. And then just finally, the last kind of section of the grass pitch improvement series is going to be either towards late April or into May. So this will be a face-to-face workshop. So we'll be looking at doing some practical demonstrations and demonstrating some more innovative bits and pieces that might be interesting for yourselves as clubs. So looking at things like robotic line marking, which I'm sure will be very exciting for everyone to see. So keep an eye out for that. And then finally, just the next steps. So yeah, as Daniel's kind of mentioned, make sure you've got a plan of what you're going to do moving forward, so that you can get some of the early bits that you might need to get done before the main part of the renovations in as early as possible. If you haven't already, make sure you get your pitch power assessments in before the end of March, and then you'll be able to get some more up-to-date advice on what best to do with your pitches. And if you haven't already applied for grass pitch maintenance funding, please make sure you do that as well. It's there to kind of help you and give you the resource to be able to invest in your pitches. Join the Hive groundskeeping community. And then finally, just make sure, if you haven't already, you submit a nomination for the Grassroots Football Awards, particularly the Grounds Team Awards. And we'd really like to see a lot of the ground staff celebrated for the hard work that they put in, week out. So that pretty much concludes it for this evening. So Yeah, as has been kind of mentioned, if you've got any kind of questions that you'd like to ask following it tonight, then feel free to send us over an email, and yeah, myself, Daniel, will be more than happy to help and hopefully give you the advice you need and help you progress your pitches. Smashing.
Thanks, Aidan, and thanks for joining this evening. And yeah, to echo Aidan's message, the support is out there. Feel free to get in touch with me if if you've got anything that you want to talk over or require more information on. If I don't know the answer, I'll find somebody that does and can signpost you in the right direction.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thanks very much again for your time today, Daniel, and sharing your expert knowledge. And yeah, we'll catch up again on the next one.
Great. Take
Brilliant.
care.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Cheers.